Good evening, I'm Obscura. Tonight we travel downward, not through time alone, but through earth, stone, and shadow. Beneath the green hills of 18th century Britain, a different world churned. One of soot-black walls and shallow air, of footsteps in the dark, and of lives spent digging, not for treasure, but for survival. This was the era of early coal, before machines hummed and rails clicked, when the engine of progress still ran on muscle, when children worked as mules, men as silent ghosts, and women, above ground, waited for either coin or news that never came. Tonight, we will move through this quiet devastation in 4 chapters. First, you will descend into the pit. You will feel the heat of the lantern, the weight of the dust, the ache in your back. You'll understand, gently, why you would not have lasted a day. Then we'll meet someone who did. A voice that rose from the tunnels to challenge the system itself. After that, we'll explore a mystery. The forgotten flooded shafts beneath modern fields, abandoned tombs of early industry. And finally, we'll rise again, to a world of silk waistcoats and imported tea, where the air smelled clean, where the soot never reached, where the coal was just a concept. Let's begin. Segment 1. Why you'd collapse under the Earth's weight. Imagine waking before the sun. The hearth is still cold. Your boots are still damp from the day before. You are perhaps 12, or maybe 40, but your bones feel older. Your back already curved in a quiet, permanent bow. The air outside smells faintly of dung and frost. The cottage is no more than stone and wood, a single room, no insulation. Your breakfast is yesterday's bread, dipped in watery broth if you're lucky. There's no time to linger. The pit head waits. It rises like a wooden skeleton on the edge of the village, a low tower with ropes and pulleys and a black hole beneath. They call it the mouth, and rightly so. The descent is slow. You ride in a cradle, bare wood and fraying rope, swinging gently into blackness. Below, the earth narrows, then closes around you. The first thing you feel is the heat. Despite the frost above, down here, it is warm, almost stifling. A cloying warmth, wet with condensation, and the slow, steady breath of men. You walk crouched. The ceiling is barely 4 feet high. In some tunnels, not even that. The floor is slick. Coal dust mixes with trickling water, forming a sticky sludge that clings to your soles. You carry a small lamp, oil-fed, flickering. Its light is weak. The shadows beyond it, thick. You smell gas sometimes. They call it fire damp. Invisible. Explosive. When it builds, all lamps must be snuffed out. And then, there is only the dark. The kind of dark that presses on your eyelids even when they're open. You work with pick and shovel, or you load the carts. Or, if you're small and wiry, you haul them. Some call you a putter. Others, a trapper. The one who opens and closes the air doors to keep the mine from choking. You sit for hours, waiting. In stillness, with nothing but the creak of timbers, and the occasional thump of something collapsing deeper below. The air is thick, with dust, with the scent of burning oil, with sweat and something else. Not rot, but not life either. Time is hard to measure. There are no clocks underground, only the routine of ache, and the rhythm of shifting carts. There are rats, of course there are. They follow the carts, gnawing at crumbs, nesting in the walls. You grow used to them. You grow used to everything, even the danger. Sometimes there's a groan in the earth, a slow shift, a falling beam. Sometimes there's nothing at all. Just a scream, then silence. When your shift ends, you climb. Up the shaft, back to the surface, where the air is sharp and cold and unclean in its own way. Your hands are black. Your lungs too. And tomorrow you will do it again. Because you must. Because your family needs the coal allowance. Because there is no other work. Because you were born near the pit. And so, in a way, you were born to it. But now, let us pause. Let us climb gently from the shaft, brush the dust from our shoulders, and meet someone who did more than survive. Someone who dared to speak for those who couldn't. Segment 2. The child miner who became a rebel voice. Let's imagine a different morning now. The same gray sky, the same cold hearth. But this time there is something else. A thought that does not belong to soot or stone. A thought that says, "This is not how life should be. Let us walk with William Davy, or Mary Hignite." Their names are uncertain. Their stories fragmented, but their footprints still linger in the dust of the past. We begin with William, a boy of the seams. Born in County Durham near Hetton, one of the many colliery villages that spread like soot stains across northern England. At age 7, he entered the mines. Not as a laborer, but as a trapper. His job was simple: to sit in total darkness day after day, opening and closing a heavy wooden door to regulate airflow. He was paid by the shift, not the hour. He was punished if he fell asleep. It was here, in that void, that he began to think. Not of revolution, not of politics, but of fairness. He watched the older boys struggle with carts that weighed more than they did. He listened to the foreman shout and strike with his stick. He saw men brought up from the pit, silent, broken, or worse. Years passed, and William's bones grew, but his anger grew faster. When he turned 15, he joined a protest. Not loud, not violent, just a gathering of voices in the yard of the colliery. They asked for shorter hours, for safer conditions, for wages that matched the risk. He spoke with quiet clarity. He was not educated, but he understood pain. Soon, he found himself blacklisted. No pit would take him. So he walked. From Durham to Manchester. From Manchester to London. Along the way, he wrote letters to parish ministers, to magistrates, even to Parliament. He became somehow a symbol, a coal boy turned speaker. When the first commissions into child labor began in the 1830s, it was testimony like his, fragmented, scribbled, tear-stained, that turned ears. And what of Mary? Her story is harder still to trace. She may have worked in the collieries of Yorkshire, a hurrier perhaps, dragging carts on her hands and knees through tunnels no taller than a child's waist. She was said to be quick with her tongue, known to shout back at overseers. Once she smuggled a candle stub to a trapper boy too afraid of the dark. One version of her story ends with her dying young, collapsed from exhaustion in the shaft. Another claims she lived to speak before a bishop, standing in a borrowed dress, telling him calmly that her world was black even at midday. Whether William or Mary, or countless others unnamed, they were voices of soot. And they did not shout. They spoke slowly, clearly, because they knew the weight of every word. It is easy now to overlook them, to let their stories fade under the noise of engines and factories. But for a time, in those buried corridors, they lit a match. And for a moment, the dark backed away. Let us follow that light now, into the mystery of what was left behind. Old shafts, sealed doors, and relics that still lie beneath our feet. Segment 3. Mysterious tombs beneath the surface. There are places where the land forgets, where the soil grows quiet, where wild grass reclaims what once was industry, and where no one walks, not out of superstition, but uncertainty. These are the places where old shafts sleep, abandoned coal mines, forgotten tunnels, sealed chambers somewhere deep, in the fields of Wales, in the hills of Northumberland, and scattered through the Midlands, the ground is hollow, not metaphorically, but quite literally. Beneath the pasture and trees lie corridors carved by lantern light, chambers dug by hand, wooden supports long since rotted away. No maps remain. Or if they do, they're scattered. In parish record books, mining logs, or faded sketches in a surveyor's drawer. Some shafts were sealed abruptly, after accidents, floods, fires, the entrances bricked, the stories hushed. Others were simply abandoned, when the seam ran dry, or when deeper, more productive pits opened nearby. And so, they were left, unspoken, but not untouched. Over the centuries, walkers reported strange subsidence, sinkholes appearing in sheep fields, cracks in garden walls, air that seemed somehow thinner than it should be. Local legends began, whispers of underground rivers, of miners' lanterns still glowing, of carts heard creaking when no one was near. Of course, much of it is just that, folklore. But archaeology has uncovered more than stories. In 1998, near the edge of County Durham, a team surveying for a new housing development stumbled across what they thought was a natural void. Instead, they found timbers. Warped with age but unmistakably structured. Beneath them, rusted tools, clay pipes, and a single boot. The shaft was estimated to be from the 1750s. No records existed. No one remembered its name. Inside were faint markings on the stone walls. Simple initials scratched with a nail. A tally, perhaps a prayer. Further south in Derbyshire, a collapsed chamber revealed something stranger still. A small shrine of sorts, carefully arranged rocks, a miner's lamp, unlit, and a cloth-wrapped bundle of what appeared to be bones. Not human, but animal. A fox, perhaps, or a dog. Offerings, companions, no one knows. In Yorkshire, children exploring an old quarry once found a buried door, iron-bound, half swallowed by earth. It led nowhere. Behind it, only rock. But someone at some time had placed it there. A symbol, perhaps, of closure, of keeping something in, or keeping something out. These are not the grand tombs of emperors. No gold lies within, no carved epitaphs, no marble, but they are tombs all the same. Tombs of labor, tombs of breath, tombs of noise, stilled, and like all tombs they whisper, softly, in dust and rust and silence. The ground above them carries on. Children play, tractors pass, seasons shift, but beneath, the tools remain, the soot lingers, and the memory waits. Let us rise gently now, out of these buried places, out of these forgotten seams, and into the world that stood above it all, clean, quiet, untouched by coal. The landowners, the factory owners, the drawing rooms and garden paths. Segment 4, Landowners' Manor versus Miners' Pit. Above the mines, another world unfolded. Quiet, polished, detached. It was a world of stone manor houses nestled behind iron gates, of manicured hedgerows and gravel paths, of breakfast porridge served in porcelain bowls, and parlors perfumed with imported herbs. Here the coal was a number, a measure of output, an account line in a ledger. For the landowner, the mine was not a place to visit. It was a venture, a vein of income. Not of stone, but of status. While men labored underground, the master dined. Roast lamb, butter-basted root vegetables, black pudding with plum preserves. He sat beneath portraits, not of his workers, but of his ancestors, gazing sternly down in oils and gold leaf. His fingers, pale and clean, tapped softly against the armrest as he read the Times. The news from London, the condition of his horses, the weather in Bath, these were his concerns. And yet, through thick curtains, a distant echo could be heard. Not clearly, not daily, but sometimes, the low rumble of carts, the distant clang of a pithead beam, a miner's cough, carried faintly on the wind. Occasionally he might descend to the yard, not into the mine itself, of course, but to the surface. He might inspect the machinery, speak to the foreman, offer a half-hearted nod to a row of boys lined up with coal-smeared hands. He might even shake one of their hands, and then retreat to wash it thoroughly. Meanwhile, the miner's home lay just beyond the hedgerows. Stone cottages arranged like dominoes along muddy roads, chimneys coughing smoke. Children barefoot in the slurry. Inside, the floors were often bare. One room for cooking, eating, and sleeping. A kettle, a hearth, a cracked mirror nailed to the wall. Meals were shared from a single pot. Usually potatoes, sometimes beans, rarely meat. Fathers returned from the pit, hunched and silent. Mothers mended boots by candlelight. Children whispered games by the warmth of the fire, their hands still black from the day's work. The contrast was not only visual, it was atmospheric. In the manor, silence was a luxury. A piano, perhaps, a clock ticking in rhythm. In the cottage, silence was heavy. It meant no coal, no work, no future. And yet, in both places, life went on. The landowner's daughter might sketch roses on the veranda. The miner's son might whistle a tune his grandfather once sang, long before the mines. Both saw the same sky. Both breathed the same wind, but only one felt the coal on his skin. In time, some of these lines blurred. Industry changed. Laws were passed. Voices grew louder. But in the 18th century, the divide was wide as the gap between the pit's black mouth and the manor's walled garden. Now, the candle dims. The carts have stopped. The pit is quiet. Let us step back from the soot and the silence, back to the world of quilts and quiet rooms. And so we end where we began, underground and above it, among dust and among drawing rooms. Tonight we trace the weight of coal, not just the mineral, but the burden it placed upon shoulders, young and old, rich and poor. We followed the miners into the dark, listened to the soft rebellion of their voices, explored the secrets buried in collapsed chambers, and stood finally in the polished stillness of those who never touched the coal, but depended on it all the same. The past is never truly silent, even when it's buried, even when it's soot-covered, even when it's forgotten. It hums, softly, like the rhythm of a pick against stone. Let that rhythm fade now. Let it slow. And as you drift, let the dark of the mine become the dark of rest. Safe, still, warm. Good night.